Lesson 21 in Established in the Faith book is on the spiritual war, how we can win it and what we know about it. Isaiah 14:7-17 and 2 Timothy 4 talk about this a lot. Question, we ask, why are there so many troubles and problems in life? It's because we are in a spiritual war between the forces of God and Satan, between good angels and evil angels, between Christians and unbelievers, between what is right and what is wrong. This spiritual war lasts from Satan's rebellion in heaven, which was before the creation of the world, until the end of the millennial rule of Christ of 1,000 years, when Satan is thrown into the lake of fire. We are fighting for the souls of men, for eternity. We are in this war whether we like it or not. If we ignore our warfare responsibilities by dropping out or quitting or doing nothing, we put more work on those who are on God's side, and we help Satan advance and promote his cause. 9 Bible verses teaching the spiritual war are as follows. Acts 26:18, Jesus told Paul, sending it to the Gentiles to turn them from the power of Satan and to God, and from darkness to light, that they may receive inheritance among them which is sanctified. By faith it's in me. So turning people from the power of Satan means that there's a spiritual war unto God. Second reference is 2 Corinthians 10:4. The weapons of our warfare, so we're in a warfare, are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. Strongholds are things that control people's minds for evil. And then the next reference is Ephesians 6 verse 12. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, meaning we're not fighting against humans, but we're wrestling against against principles of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So it's saying it's a spiritual war that's controlling people's minds. And 1 Timothy 1:18, thou by them might war a good warfare. So we're in a warfare. And then we read 2 Timothy 2 verse 4 and 26, no man that wars entangles himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who has chosen him to be a soldier. And Satan takes people captive. And then 1 Peter 2:11, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. And then you have Revelation 12:7 and 17 about war in heaven, or the second heaven, which is space. Now, what do we know about this spiritual war that we're all involved in? The first thing we know is the spiritual war started when the angel Lucifer, now known as Satan, said, I will be like the Most High. Isaiah 14:14 and 12-17. He wanted to be worshipped as God is worshipped. But he's only a created being, and he has nowhere near as much knowledge as God. And he does not warrant anyone's worship. Okay. Him, Satan had to say that his ways are better than God's ways. Now, that is a complete lie, but he was a pretty good salesman and a pretty good deceiver. And so the third thing we know about the spiritual war is that 1/3 of the angels were deceived into rebelling against God and following Satan. Revelation 12:4, 1/3 of the stars of heaven followed him. That's angels. The fourth thing we learn about the spiritual war is that the big question for both angels and humans is, who do I follow? Whose ways are best? God's ways or Satan's ways? That's the question. Now, point number 5 we know is that logically, if God created us, if God cares for us, and God provides all of our needs, then God's ways are surely best. Okay? Hosea. Number 6 thing we know, about the spiritual war is, why did God create man? What's the reason for God creating man on planet Earth for 7,000 years? It was to resolve the angelic conflict, to show that God's ways are best and have good outcomes, and Satan's ways are terrible and have bad outcomes. Job 38 verse 7, the sons of God sang for joy when man was created. And number 7 thing we learn is that Satan's strategy is to deceive, as stated in Revelation 20 verse 3, 8 and 10. His strategy is to take people captive, 2 Timothy 2:26, and then steal, kill and destroy, John 10 verse 10. The 8th thing we know about the war is that because of deception and lies of Satan, it is a war of ideas, a conflict between God's true ideas against many false, troublemaking ideas. Lesson 9 about the spiritual war is, if we lose the war of ideas, it then becomes a military war where we lose and countries lose their freedom, their peace and their prosperity. Revelation 12:7. Lesson number 10 about the spiritual war. The spiritual war occurs in most areas of life. Satan wants to control religion. He wants to control education by brainwashing kids with stupid ideas like transgenderism. He wants to control politics by putting evil politicians in power. He wants to control science by pushing evolution lies. He wants to control the media by brainwashing people into believing errors. And he wants to control philosophy. Okay? Now, number 11 thing we learn about the spiritual war, it requires for us to have training in the Bible and how to speak to people. We need to have courage to speak up. We need to have determination to continue on and not quit. We need to have teamwork where we work with other godly Christians. We need to have allies and friends in the ministry. We need to have strong friendships with good godly Christians. We need to plan ahead to do things for God. We need multiplication strategies where we multiply disciples and train them to win and train others. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, Hosea 4 verse 6. Okay, and that's a big problem. If we don't have knowledge, we get destroyed. And this happens to families, individuals and nations. Then number 12 thing we learn about the spiritual war, it involves learning and teaching God's truths to many people and identifying and rebuking many errors as described in 2 Timothy 2 verses 1 to 4. Number 13, the spiritual war has heroes who make right decisions, who endure hardness and who use big ideas to win many people for God. Are you a hero or are you a dropout? Number 14 thing we learn about the spiritual war, it involves watching in all things, enduring afflictions, doing the work of an evangelist, leading people to Christ as a soul winner, 2 Timothy 4 verse 5. Number 15 we learn about the spiritual war, we are like a wrestler wrestling with evil forces. We are like a runner running the race. We are like a soldier fighting in a war, 2 Timothy 4:7. Crowns and rewards await us in heaven if we win the spiritual war, 2 Timothy 4 verse 8. Number 16 lesson we learn, in the spiritual war, gospel tracts explaining the gospel and Bible teaching books are necessary to teach large numbers of people and to give the best answers, 2 Timothy 4 verse 16. And this is why we use a stop tract, establish book and answers book and understanding book and NIV and mission books and take care of him. Lesson number 17 about the spiritual war is that fearful, excuse-making Christians who dislike work are a big problem in the spiritual war, Luke 14 verse 18, because they're dropouts and they discourage others and distract them and tell them to drop out as well. So a lot of Christians are excuse makers, fearful, dropouts, don't like soul winning, don't like teaching the Bible, got no one to disciple, and they cause splits and fights. Lesson number 18 about the spiritual war. God, good angels and Christians help us, as described in 2 Kings 6:16. Satan, evil angels and ungodly people oppose us. 1 Thessalonians 2:18. And Satan's always putting ideas in people's minds to oppose us. Lesson number 19 about the spiritual war. We must know how to use our spiritual weapons, described in Ephesians 6:10-18. Know how to lead people to Christ, know how to disciple them, know how to resist the devil's temptations, know how to teach Bible truth and what is right and what is wrong. And we must know how to stay inside God's walls of protection. That was revealed in Job chapter 1 verse 10, that God put a hedge around Job and protected him so Satan could not touch him. And if we're involved in God's work, God will put a hedge around us. Lesson number 20 about the spiritual war. Satan puts mad, bad, sad, evil ideas in our mind, as Acts 5 verse 3 is stated by Peter there. God puts good, wise, peaceful ideas in our mind. Number 21 about the spiritual war. Satan's devices are alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, gambling, false religions, fornication, ungodly people, and lies. We are not ignorant of his devices. Lesson 22 about it is that don't quit the spiritual war. Stay faithful in church and soul winning and Bible teaching, or you will, if you drop out of church and quit, you lose your existing friends and you lose new friends. You lose ideas. You lose opportunities. You lose rewards in heaven. You lose God's approval, and you lose peace. 2 Timothy 4:10, Paul said, like Demas. Understand that future generations are waiting for us to win the spiritual war and run the race that God has given us to run. And we must be very faithful to God in this war, or we can lose our peace, freedom, prosperity, and we can become a Muslim or atheist dictatorship like North Korea and Iran. So let's stick with the spiritual war, stay faithful to God and church and good Christians, and resist the devil's lies and support other Christians. If you don't support other Christians, you are promoting the devil's cause. So let's be spiritually intelligent and win the spiritual war. Okay? God bless.